Welcome to South Cobb Live, the podcast where community comes to life. We bring you stories behind South Cobb's incredible small businesses by interviewing local entrepreneurs and leaders that contribute to making our neighborhoods the place to be. I'm your host, Elise White, bringing you all the connections and good vibes to the mic. And today, we're excited to be diving into health and wellness with Alex Simmons, the innovative owner behind Whole Body Systems. He is the founder, and we're really excited to learn about his approach to strength, bone health, and holistic fitness and therapy.
Absolutely.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So happy for you to be here today. This is, health and wellness is my favorite topic probably out of anything because it impacts everything that we do day to day, right?
It's growing in popularity, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the older you get, you start to be like, oh, I actually need this.
Yeah, I think so too. It's becoming very big, and there's a bunch of new research out, and there's a bunch of new modalities, and I think what's really cool is to see younger generations grafting onto the importance of health and developing health habits so that they can be healthy for long periods of time.
Yeah.
And that's exciting for us to see the younger generations knowing and understanding these things.
Yeah, and long term, right? Because I'm remembering learning as a kid, the easiest way to build a habit, do something for 21 days, and then
Right.
just have long term is 21 days, right? And that's not real.
No, it's about life, and that's one of our big tenets is to really encourage consistency. One of my favorite things to say is consistency is king. And when we talk about exercise, I tell people all the time, you can take 2 days off and you can take 5 days off, but you can't take 7 days off.
Wow.
Because as soon as you take 7 days off, it becomes 14 days real quick.
It really does.
So it's like that. We break it into week-long segments, and it's like you got to get something done every week. And even if it's a little thing, if you do 50 push-ups, that counts, and at least you got that in. But so consistency is king. That's one of our big things.
We're gonna have to say that again.
There you go.
Consistency is king.
That's right.
I love that. Well, let's jump right into today's episode. So, Alex, can you share your journey a little bit about what led you to create Whole Body Systems and found it?
Sure. So it's kind of an interesting story. I mean, my background is in business and in development. I was telling you before we started, but previously I was in music education business.
Yeah.
And what we did there was we had retail stores where we taught private music lessons, and in that business I developed a business inside a business model where we started doing after school enrichment programs.
Nice.
That business ended up winding down,
Okay.
but I was still really excited about the business inside a business model concept.
Yeah.
And so around about this time is when I was really getting a grip on my own personal health and wellness. Mm-hmm. I grew up I was a football player, so that's how I learned to exercise was, in the weight room throwing iron around.
Nice.
And so,
I pick things up and put them down.
Yeah, pick them up, put them down. And the heavier the better.
Yeah.
And so it actually started with me. I started having an issue with my shoulder. I was doing push-ups. I had a little click in my shoulder, so I started to see a chiropractor. Mm-hmm. Found out about some kind of abnormalities I had in my spine. Started to learn, he helped me really get through this shoulder issue.
Wow.
And so I started to really identify the importance of musculoskeletal health, and really started with spine care, protecting your spine.
Yeah.
And so this particular chiropractor had an empty room in his office. And I had found out about this technology that we'll talk about here in a minute, and it was just new to the market. I was an early adopter. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, business inside a business. And there was guys that were opening bone health studios, essentially. And I was like, what is that? Like, nobody knows what that is.
Right.
So I asked my chiropractor, I said, well, what if I take this machine and I put it in your office, and we work together and we just kind of see how it works. So it started like that.
Wow.
And I had, originally it was just me and one BioDensity machine in a room that was about the size of a closet. And I really didn't know what I was doing. I knew that I'd seen the research. I knew that this technology was novel, and I knew it was effective.
Yeah.
And I knew that it was going to serve a population with something that they needed that they didn't have available. So there was all these components there, and I was fired up on the business inside a business model. I thought, okay, well, I've got a low cost to entry We had a revenue share arrangement at the beginning, so all I had to do was buy the machine, and then we split revenue. So that's how it started, and then it's grown into something a little bit bigger, and we can continue to keep growing.
That is amazing.
Yeah,
that's a great story, a business inside a business model.
Right.
That's such a great approach, an entrepreneurial approach to get you kind of started, right?
That was the idea, and because there's a huge expense, opening a place like this that we have now. We didn't open our first standalone facility until 12 years after I started.
Wow.
And so, and I was doing this all myself, I call it rubbing pennies together to make this happen, so I took whatever I could find and tried to turn it into resources that were useful for people.
Yeah.
And one of them was the empty room in the chiropractor's office. I said, you're not doing anything in here. This is wasted space. Let me come in here and make some use out of it.
Right.
And he has clientele that need the service as well.
Wow.
So it was a good symbiosis.
Yeah.
And that's how and the original idea was to scale that way, was to create a service where we were independent contractors that provided this service for chiropractors, essentially, that wanted to have an exercise component to their practice,
right,
but didn't want to make the investment, didn't want to hire and train and staff people to run it. So that's how we started. And in the beginning, I developed 3 different chiropractors' offices that I was a part of. It took me a while to find the 3.
Yeah.
But eventually, within the first 2 or 3 years, I had 3 offices. Slowly grew the business, with the base clientele, and then learned a whole lot in the process.
Yeah.
And originally, this technology was not supposed to be exercise. It was a clinical modality just for bone strength. But what I learned was that it's hard to sell something that nobody knows that it's out there.
Right.
It's just like
right,
if you're selling pizza, if you have a pizza joint, everybody knows what pizza is. They're looking for it when they want pizza.
Absolutely.
Nobody knows that there's a bone health solution with its exercise based.
The interesting thing about that is while you were speaking about your chiropractic business model as an independent contractor, identifying open space, maximizing it, and it being fulfilling a value add need, I randomly thought of the vending machine model.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's kind of like the same kind of
you
concept,
captured
right?
Audience.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's what in the music education business, like I said, we were originally building retail stores and marketing to the schools to get the kids to come from the school building to our building so we could teach them music lessons. Well, when we figured out, well, hey, you can come in here and be contracted as they called it a enrichment program.
Right.
So as a private company, we can come in after school and teach private music lessons to the kids there. It's like, well, why would we invest all this money in building a building and all this build out? They're already, and the kids are already there.
They're already there.
They've got the brick and mortar, they've got the customers.
Wow.
We can just come in with our service. And it ended up being such a good business model that we sold out within a couple months, literally.
And now you're looking for space, right?
No, so we sold that portion of the business to a much larger company.
Nice.
And that's a longer story, maybe for another day.
I understand. No, you've got
Yeah.
some gems in your pocket from experience.
I
It seems
do.
like
Well,
that's
I
great.
learned so much in that process. And I took a lot what I learned there into this model, and worked happily with in the chiropractic business inside a business model for over 10 years. But what really kind of shifted things was after the first year or two, I really realized that this was so much more than just a clinical modality for bone health.
Yeah.
And that I was seeing people that really, really needed a bunch of help in a bunch of other areas other than bone density, right? So that's when I stopped calling it a clinical bone modality and I started calling it therapeutic exercise. I started adding other pieces of equipment. We got the vibration plates. That's when I realized, I'm really actually working out with people.
Yeah.
So I went through the process of the personal training certification and then got certified as a exercise therapist and certified in exercise recovery. So I learned all of these protocols. Also working with chiropractors and very closely to learn about how to protect the natural curves of the spine. Like that was a really big thing. And so going from, where my exercise experience was the football weight room, where they're not really thinking about spinal health in there,
Right.
To, well, what do we need to do to protect our spines, and how do we engage in strength training so that we are going to, I want to look at when I'm 70 and 80 years old, I want to be playing golf at a really high level.
Right.
I still want to be hiking really big mountains, and I know that if I continue to train the way I did with football, it doesn't really end that way. It's hard on the joints, it's hard on the spine. So it was about creating exercise that was more about longevity and function versus aesthetics and performance, which is, I think, where most exercise programs kind of lean into.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes you a differentiator, and it's wonderful to me to hear you speak about your journey and your experience, because you being out there on the football and field, experiencing the hardship on your body, that planted a seed for you, right? And then you hurt your shoulder, and then you're like, oh, chiropractic therapy. And like those connections helped you build all of this, right?
It did.
Isn't that crazy?
It absolutely did, yeah. It's really, when you put it like that and think about it on a large scale, it's like, it is kind of strange. I mean, I didn't really know anything about holistic health and wellness, and around about this time is when I had a young family. I have 2 small boys, and my wife, I have to give her some credit too.
Okay,
she
they're always in the background doing everything.
She was a big influence, I never forget when she bought organic bananas, and I'm like, those are 20 cents more than the regular bananas. Like, what are you doing? And she was like, you can taste the difference. I'm like, no way. And then before long, it's like, you can taste the difference.
Right. Because you try the old banana, you're like, wait.
I was like, wait a minute, something's kind of different here. So,
awesome.
She got me really onto the nutritional side of things.
Yeah.
And I started applying the function-focused exercise protocols to my own health and wellness routine, and saw just things change with my body. Saw it's like my shoulder got better. At some point, especially after doing biodensity, is when I realized it was in the best shape of my life. It's like I could run and jump faster than I could as a high school athlete.
Wow.
Which I thought there's something to that.
Yeah.
And it's because I felt good.
Nice.
Very interesting how it.
Love that.
Way,
yeah. So, a message to the audience.
Yeah.
Smart men listen to their wives.
That's
but
right.
Anyway, here you go. You got some points on that, right? So I want to talk a little bit. So I met your business partner, Kim Brinson, at a local SBA event. And for those who don't know, that is a Smyrna Business Association event. It was a Women's Small Business Forum in Smyrna. It was a really great event, a couple months ago. And I really just am curious, like, how did your partnership with Kim, or your business partner, help shape your vision and grow your business?
So with Kim, Kim is special. Kim came in at a really, really good time. And as I've grown the team, what I've really started to understand and appreciate about bringing people into our organization is that everybody has different assets and attributes, and everybody has different goals. And so what I try to do when I bring somebody into our company is let's really identify those things, and let's lean into those things. And in my interview, I have it's kind of, people make fun because they hear me say it a lot. It's like when you come and interview for a job, if I say, hey, if your lifelong goal is to be a rodeo clown, like, let me help you get there. If this is a stepping stone so that you can pay rent while you're going to clown school, like, let's talk about it. Let's be transparent. And I want to help you I want you to realize your dreams and your goals. And Kim, and in this industry, particularly this industry, nobody really gets into health and wellness to get rich. You do it because it's a passion. It's a labor of love.
Absolutely.
And the ones that tend to be really good with their hands are oftentimes the ones that are not so good with the business structure of things, which is really what my background is. And so what I wanted to be able to do was to be able to come in and provide some business support for people that are really good practitioners with their hands. So Kim's unique because she's good at both. And she
A diamond.
She was.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. They're hard to find.
Yeah.
And so she actually she was a partner in another exercise studio down the road, and she came to work with me just as a contractor. She was just doing a couple of days a week.
Yeah.
And then she told me one day, she says, you know what, I think we're going to close our business. Our lease is up. I think we're just going to go our separate ways. And she says, I want to come on full time with you. And I said, okay, well, why don't we do something new? And why don't we open a standalone facility? And, because we were still in the chiropractor's office. So we went from a, 300 square foot room to opening this space, which is about 1,500 feet. Yeah.
Wow.
And so, when we made the separation from, pulling out of the chiropractor's office to now we're our own thing, that just opened the door to the whole world for us. It was, I was comfortable in that little space because it was inexpensive and it was an efficient operation, but it also limited us in a lot of ways.
In what ways?
In some ways, because being associated with the chiropractor brings a certain stigma. And I encountered that more than once, where people, would even tell me like, "Oh, I'm not interested in doing anything that has to do with chiropractic." Everyone has an opinion.
Sometimes.
Everyone has an opinion about chiropractic, whether it's good or not. So we were limited in that way, but we also didn't have any exposure. We didn't have any signage. We didn't have our own administrative processes. We shared a lot of the things. So that symbiosis was good, but it started to limit us in some ways. It was also just a smaller space, and we got to the point where, we could only do one appointment at a time. So we had a finite amount of clients that we could take. And in those 3 offices that we had, it got to the point where it was hard to get new clients because, if somebody wanted to come at 9:30 on a Tuesday, we were full. We're full from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. So it's like, if you want a morning appointment time, I can't really take you anymore.
Right.
So we had to expand so that we could do multiple appointments at one time. So it really opened up our capacity a lot more. But getting the exposure and then having autonomy just to be our own thing, and not having to explain to people else. So you're not going to see our sign. We're inside a chiropractor's office.
Right.
And you kind of got to go through here. And it's like, no, you don't have to talk to them. You just come, it was, and so not having
waving
to do
them in
that.
the side.
It really was. It was, it didn't feel quite like we were running our own business.
Understood.
We were kind of a subsect of these other businesses.
That makes a lot of sense.
So being independent really helped us to grow in a lot of ways. But Kim, she's a go-getter, and she put a lot of trust in me, and I thank her for that, and we came up with the deal, and she came forward with some of the investment, and she had a lot of faith in me that we could pull this off, and we put it together, and I tell you, she's an all-star.
Nice.
She's doing it in every way, up and down. She's a killer.
So I'm understanding too, in addition to Smyrna, you also have 2 other locations,
That's
right?
Right. We have a location in East Cobb, Marietta, and in Roswell.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So can you share a standout moment or a success story with a client that really embodies the impact behind what you're doing at Whole Body Systems?
Yeah. So one of my favorite stories is a client came to see me to prepare for hip replacement surgery.
Ouch.
Yep, she had already scheduled the surgery. She was about 3 months out, and the surgeon told her, get in the best shape that you can, because the better shape you're in, they call it prehab, the better shape you're in before surgery, the better you're going to recover after. So she came to see me, and we started using BioDensity and Power Plate. She started getting stronger. She started feeling better. And then after about 6 weeks, she says, my hip doesn't hurt anymore. And she put off that surgery. She canceled her surgery.
What?
She did eventually have to get it, but we put it off for about 7 years.
What?
Yep.
That's incredible.
It's incredible.
Wow.
Her doctor couldn't believe it.
7 years?
7 years. Yeah.
Wow.
And and those 7 years were really good, pain-free, good, function-filled years.
Wow.
And this particular client, everybody's body's shaped different, and it was probably almost inevitable that she was going to have this surgery at some point because of the way that her pelvis was shaped, and she basically had no cartilage left in the hip socket, and she had lots of osteoarthritis, and it was kind of a mess in there. But what we were able to do was build so much functional strength around that joint that she was able to support herself and take the pressure off the joint and relieve the inflammation, relieve the pain. She was able to go and do, and her surgeon loved it. The surgeon said, you know what, the longer you can put this off, the better, because she wasn't super old when she came. She's a little older now. She's been a client for over 10 years now.
Nice. Well, I would be too if I had. I mean, that's like the worst case scenario. You don't want to have to go through the surgery,
have to go through surgery.
But it's debilitating too when you're dealing with that.
Yeah, but to see the change happen in her, and it happened so quick, really. But part of the issue, and this kind of really segues into what we do. She struggled with traditional forms of exercise because of the shape of her pelvis, because of the pain in her hip. And so she couldn't go into the gym and lift traditional weights. She couldn't engage in a lot of activities that we probably all take for granted because she had some of these issues. But because of the tools we use certified medical devices rather than traditional exercise equipment that are designed specifically to help people get stronger while minimizing the risk and minimizing the degeneration that sometimes happens with traditional weightlifting exercises. So she had never found anything, never known about anything like this because it's new. There's not really a whole lot of stuff out there like this.
That's a great segue because, I wanted to ask you, who do you find benefits most from your services and this story?
We are very, we're very strong in the bone health world. So this particular machine, the BioDensity machine, which we kind of started the business around, was designed specifically for osteoporosis. So we do a lot of marketing for that population. And when you think osteoporosis, a lot of times you think a little old lady, old hunched over.
Immediate hunch.
I say that a lot, and people go, oh, so you work with like really old people, and it's like, that's not the case. Most people get diagnosed with osteoporosis when you're 50 or 55. And I don't know if you've noticed, but 55-year-olds they're getting a lot younger.
They're the new 30. They're the new 30 now.
I see some people tell me they're 55. I'm like, well, I thought you were younger than me.
Absolutely.
And so it's that is the age range. It's the postmenopausal female that has not done a whole lot of weight-bearing exercise in their life. And it's usually, once you hit menopause as a female, a lot of things change. And one of those things is your muscle mass. It starts to go down. Your bone density starts to go down because you have a lot of hormonal changes. And so, it's these individuals, that's kind of our primary market are those people.
That's wonderful. Thank you. That's very important.
Yeah.
So tell me, the BioDensity machine, it's an assessment. It's supposed to analyze. Tell me about it a little bit more. It's this technology.
But it's also the tool. So it's really hard to sell. So if I told you that you could come see me once a week, and you could do 20 seconds worth of exercise.
20 seconds.
And I could change the way that your body looks and feels, you would tell me I'm crazy.
I'm like, wait, you said, let me run that back.
Yeah.
20 seconds.
Yeah.
Once a week.
That's right.
Okay.
And I can increase your bone density. I can increase your muscle density.
Wow.
I could strengthen all the connective tissue in your body. And I can maximize your neural function. It's going to make you stronger. It's going to make you more agile. It's going to make you jump higher, all in 20 seconds a week. So it's using the science of isometrics. So what BioDensity is there's 4 different isometric exercises. Isometric means you push and nothing moves. So iso meaning same, metric meaning length. Right? So nothing moves. And what you're doing is applying force in a static position. So each of those 4 exercises, you do a max force exertion that's only 5 seconds long. You do 1 repetition on each, and you come see us once a week.
Listen to that. My math knows that 4 times 5 equals 20 seconds, and then you just did it.
And so
that.
I had to go back here. So kind of back to the original when we started, it was just me in about a closet-sized room with the BioDensity machine.
Wow.
And I spent a bunch of money on marketing. I said, and I'd have people drive from across town, and they would come in and do a session, and it's 20 seconds of exercise, but they're in the office for like 5 minutes.
Right.
Because we'll have a little bit of a conversation. So they would do their session, and then I'd say, okay, see you next week. And they look at me like I'm crazy. And they're like, I just drove 35 minutes to get here, and you're telling me I'm here for 5 minutes, that's all I have to do, and you're gonna fix my osteoporosis? And I'm like, yeah, it's hard to sell. So part of the reason why I expanded and started adding other modalities, we added the vibration plate, then we started adding other exercises, then we get certified in personal training and exercise therapy, then we started doing assisted stretching, all because it started because the perceived value is hard to capture with BioDensity.
Understood.
So I was like, I'm getting people to come here. It's like, I went from a 5-minute appointment to a 15-minute appointment, and literally I'm like, what else can I do with them in here? It's like, you want me to dance for you? It's like,
because you're getting strong by this machine, but it's okay. We're going to do everything else.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, I just need to fill this time so they feel like they're getting more value for what they're spending. I mean, I was only charging like $40 a month when I first started. And I tell you what, it's worth your time to drive across town and do just this. But you have to do it with consistency, right? That's the king.
Consistency is king.
That's all right. Consistency is king. You got to be consistent, and you got to commit to long term.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not going to happen overnight.
And you can't take weeks off or months off
can't take
because
weeks
you think
off
you got
because
stronger.
you go down sliding,
Yeah.
right? So what happens is we call it a biodensity moment. And everybody has one when they do it for long enough, right?
Absolutely.
And it's when you do your biodensity consistently over time, you're kind of operating on faith. Because you're like, you know what, I'm going to trust this process with what the science is doing here. And then you have your biodensity moment. Maybe it's 4 months down the road. I've had some people have them after the first session where they come back and they might say, I don't know if it was this machine, but I feel different. I was able to lift more, or I was able to, my back doesn't hurt anymore. I was able to carry this up the stairs, and it was harder last week.
Move the furniture or something.
And so, the concept is using, we call it biohacking. What you're doing is you're using science to trigger an adaptive response in your body, right? And so with strength training, it's not about duration. Right? Your muscles don't care about how long they're under stress. It's about the intensity level of stress. So your bones in particular is more about the intensity level of stress. So if you pick up a 20-pound weight, your bones are going to be strong enough to hold up 20 pounds.
Yeah.
Whether you lift that weight 10 times or 10,000 times, your bones don't care. So if you want your bones to get stronger, you have to overload them with more and more weight. But it only takes a brief, we call it a load exposure. So expose your bones to immense amounts of stress for a very short period of time, and that triggers the bone building response in your body. And then you start producing new bone tissue. But it's hard to educate people in a really short time. So we added other things, and now we look at all of what we like to call the components of musculoskeletal health, which is your muscle strength, it's your flexibility, it's your balance. It has a lot to do with your posture. So we do a lot of posture training in our office. And all of those components really kind of circle back to function. Right?
Yes.
And it's how does your body function? It's not how does it look. It's not how are you able to compete. It's about how does your body function for activities of daily living.
Yeah.
Right? That's the core.
You need to make that decision earlier, because if you don't make it later, you're going to be paying for it at the doctor's office.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I know people, I know people that still, knees blown out, wearing braces, no cartilage, in pain, because they ran, long distances for 30, 40 years.
I love long distance running, but it's okay. It's okay.
You know what? I did it too, and you can't replace the feeling that you get from long distance running. But I think, and some people are built for it more than others.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that repetitive impact over and over again on all those joints, it takes a toll over time.
Yeah.
So we're all about trying to, it's a risk versus reward assessment for every exercise and protocol we do. So we really lean hard on the low risk protocols.
Got it.
Because if you hurt yourself, you're out of the game.
This year, So, thank you.
Yeah.
So, what upcoming services or events should our listeners know about?
So we're doing, actually have a meeting here in a minute to talk about our Dress for Health workshop that we're doing. So
nice.
I'm not big on short-term goals
Okay.
or even, like challenges. Like I don't like a 24-day challenge, stuff like that, because that steers away from the consistency is king, method.
Right.
So it's like I want people to make small changes that are maintainable over the course of your life. So if you go on a crash diet to lose 20 pounds or whatever in 3 months, well, what happens when you reach your goal?
Right.
Do you go back to eating the way you did before? No. So, Dress for Health is about looking at different components of your holistic health and wellness routine.
Okay.
It's looking at diet, rest, exercise, stress mastery, and supplemental therapies. So that's your DRESS.
I like
And so
it.
it's like, well, what we're going to do in this workshop is we're going to talk kind of about all of those different things and applying strategy to your routine. Like everybody should have a health and wellness routine.
Yep.
Whether, and it can be robust, it can be small, but above all else, it needs to be consistent. That's right.
For
Be
king.
consistent. That's right. That's right. So if you take on too much at once, it's hard to be consistent over the course of a long period of time.
Yeah.
So it's about identifying what are the small changes that we can make that are maintainable, that we can commit to, so that we can see long-term improvement. And the pay dirt is like, we're not going to lose 20 pounds in 3 weeks, but the pay dirt is when you get 3 years and 5 years or 10 years down the road and you look back and you're like, you know what, I feel great. I feel better now than I did 10 years ago. And it's because of these little small changes that you've made all along the way. So
Wonderful.
That's a workshop we're doing here in Smyrna. It's January 18th.
Okay.
Is here. We're doing one in Roswell is January 11th. So 2
Nice.
weekends back to back.
Okay.
Limited space available, and it is filling up. So get on there and sign up quick.
I love it. The
Right?
New Year approach is so important. You get all the resolutionaries, right?
Yep, and that's our chance to capture them and say, listen, we're going to do this every January because we're going to establish metrics. We'll do a bunch of testing, so everyone's going to leave with a personalized program that's going to involve BMI things. We're going to look at strength. We're going to look at nutrition. Everyone's going to have a plan, and we're going to expect to see everybody the following year. Right?
Long term.
So, yeah, long
like
term,
that.
right? So not 3 months down the road, but like let's reevaluate in January, and then we're going to do it again the next January.
Love it.
Because that's our life.
Yes,
Right?
it is.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Very good.
So I appreciate all of this information. Whole Body Systems is really taking your whole body by storm. So I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so South Cobb thrives on connection. So how do you see Whole Body Systems connecting as part of this community?
So, a lot of it is these events, and it's identifying other practitioners. Like, so that, the holistic health and wellness community is a tight-knit group.
Yeah.
And that's what I love doing more than anything. Like, what I love even more than helping people myself is identifying what you need help with. And if I can't help you, I want to know who can. And I love referring out. So like when I can make a connection with two people and they help each other,
priceless.
That feels better than me doing it myself.
It is. It's something. It's an energy buzz for me. I love that too. Yeah.
Big time. So that's what we're trying. And Karen, who's coming in with us, Karen Harrison of Eureka Holistic Nutrition.
Okay.
She's helping us put on this workshop. So we love finding other practitioners like that, alternative medicine practices, chiropractors, naturopaths, people that believe in the holistic health and wellness approach. And holistic, by the way, is zooming out and looking at the whole thing versus the medical model, which is very linear.
Yeah.
So medical model is more, this is the diagnosis, this is the protocol to follow, versus zooming out and looking at the whole picture and say, well, this diagnosis could be coming from a whole host of other things that we haven't even looked at yet. So we want to look at the whole picture of health and try to apply those principles to what we do in our life.
Awesome. So before we get into our game, because I got a little game for you.
Okay.
It's a 1 minute game. We're going to get it together. Are there any local businesses or partners or initiatives, you already mentioned one, I think, partner, that you'd like to spotlight?
So one that came to see us and just came into town is a group called The Wellness Way. It's an alternative medicine practice, and these guys are chiropractors, and they really fill a great need for us because we try to stick with our niche of exercise. exercise.
Right.
But we see people that have severe osteoporosis that might be caused by other deep-rooted systemic issues that are way out of our scope. You know, so the guys at the Wellness Way have really filled that hole for us, where if I see someone that I know is hormone depleted, for example, I can send them to the Wellness Way, and they will run the complete hormone panel check, and they will be able to then identify what they need to do to get that going back in the right direction. So Dr. Devin and Dr. Kira over at the Wellness Way, I love them to death. They've been great partners, and they're some of the best.
Wonderful.
Yeah. All right.
Time.
Game time? Okay.
It's time. So we call this the South Cobb Spotlight Sprint.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
And you talked about the 20 seconds, so I know you got it in
All right,
you.
check
The
my
20
speed,
the 20
okay.
seconds of the whole body systems approach. So,
Okay, sure
okay? So it's fun.
Okay.
It's word association.
Okay.
You literally, I'll say a word, and you say the first feeling or thought that comes to mind based on the word.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Get set.
Okay.
Wellness.
Hope.
Strength.
Body.
Innovation.
Technology.
Weekend.
Fun.
Community.
Love.
That was it.
Oh, okay.
You gave some good ones.
wasn't too
I like that.
hard.
Wasn't hard.
Okay.
Wasn't bad. I like
Okay.
it.
I had to think a little bit on one of them, but
Which one? I couldn't tell.
I don't remember.
You
which
did
one.
a good job. Your poker face was good.
Okay,
Good job.
good.
Yes.
Okay,
Awesome.
thank you.
So
Awesome.
we are really excited that you came here to be with us, Alex.
Yeah.
A huge thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And for our listeners, be sure to mention South Cobb Live when you show up at Whole Body Systems for a complimentary 30-minute stretch.
That's right. Come see us.
You said it, not me.
That's
No.
right. Yeah, that is true.
And also, remember that our businesses and our communities really thrive here in South Cobb because people like you who support our local businesses and also celebrate our neighborhoods and culture. So if you love this episode, make sure you subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And also follow us at South Cobb Live on Instagram and Facebook for more content, reels, and more updates. Thank you.